What's up, everybody? It's Levi with the Veritas 21 podcast, and I have some very special guests with me. As you can see, I have Joanna Martinez, Annalise Young, which is my niece, and my beautiful mother, Kim Mattern. We are going to be talking about singleness. This has been an episode that I have looked forward to for a very long time, and I felt that it was a perfect opportunity to bring on different generations here, and we all have different experiences, and this will be an opportunity that we get to share what is going on in our lives and how maybe our stories can impact you and some perspectives that we have, and maybe we can share that and enjoy. So Annalise and Joanna, can you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Annalise. It's great to be back on the podcast with Levi. Again, I go to TCU. I'm a junior here. And I'm really excited to be here.
I'm Joanna. I also go to TCU. I'm a junior, and it's my first time, so this will be fun.
I'm Levi's mom. He's my baby boy of 7. And I have a lot of history in all this stuff we're going to talk about.
Yes, you do. And I'm really excited to talk about it and get your perspective on this, Mom, because my mom has been a huge supporter of the podcast so far. And any episode that's recorded, I always call my mom and I'm like, hey, what did you think about that? Was I like overbearing there? Could I have said something better here just a little bit? So we actually have a butt ton of stuff to cover in this episode. So we are just going to dig right in, and let's talk about your guys' dating experiences first, and then we'll start to dig in, and then Mom can kind of share a brief synopsis of your dating experience, because how old are you?
65.
So 65 years of dating experience. She started the moment that she got out of the womb. All right. Annalise, you go ahead and start.
First of all, Levi, it's never nice to ask a woman's age.
Well, I knew Mom was okay with it.
But yeah, I say majority of my dating life came in high school. I was in a few long-term relationships throughout middle school and high school. I really haven't been in the dating world since probably freshman year of college. College for me hasn't really brought any relationship type of stuff. I mean, I've talked to some guys here and there. It never really worked out. So, I mean, it's completely different now than it used to be, but I'm kind of living the single life and I enjoy it.
Right. And Joanna, what about you?
Okay. So, yeah, my relationship life has probably yet to be explored. I went on a few dates, but it's really not led to like long-term relationships. So we're still kind of exploring that here in college.
Right. And Mom, give us a brief synopsis of your dating experience.
It was lousy. I went from, I was a sophomore in high school when I met my first husband. And so I got married when I was after my junior year of high school, and I wasn't allowed to date until I dated him. So, and I didn't really date him. I met him at church, and Dad said, okay. So, and then I was single for a couple of years, met your dad. And then after that, I decided to stay celibate and not date. And I did that for 14 and a half years.
So you'll have like a really good perspective on this topic, singleness, because here you are, you're raising, I think there were 3 of us in the home at the time. And so you had to experience, 1, being a single mother, and 2, what it was like trying to find, even if you weren't, or you were trying to find somebody, kind of what that experience was like and how you felt at that time. For me, I have been, first off, so the Chiefs lost tonight. We're recording this Sunday, the 30th. It's Sunday the 30th. Chiefs lost, but I decided to wear my Chiefs hat because I'm still going to represent. Go KC. Anyways, okay, my dating experience, I dated a few girls in high school here and there. But after high school, I've been in 4 relationships, 2 of them less than a year, and the other 2 more than 2.5 years. So I have some dating experience, and now this part of my adult life. This is the longest I have been single, and I have really found out a lot of things about myself. And that is the reason why I wanted to start this series, Dating in the XYZ Generation, because I think, we got a different dynamic of generations here, and we get to bring a perspective to all of the listeners. So to start, hey, thank you all three of you guys for sharing. To start, let's talk about loneliness. And oftentimes after a breakup, we can experience loneliness. Or Joanna, I mean, I don't know your perspective here, you never being in a relationship, and I don't know how comfortable you are sharing about that. But Annalise, let's just continue that rotation. Annalise, Joanna, and Kim.
For me, loneliness does hit pretty heavy after a relationship. I mean, in my perspective, you are used to spending the majority or a lot of your time with your significant other. After all my relationships, I did feel lonely. I never lost my friends. I still had my friends. So, I still had people there with me, but it's a different dynamic than spending all your time with someone that you love or someone that you are, in a relationship with. So, the loneliness does hit in a certain way. But for me, I've never felt too lonely because I've always had a pretty solid friend group to lean back on.
That's
right.
Good.
Very well said.
I think for me, loneliness kind of comes in these periods of your life, I guess. I think most of the time I'm great where I'm at. I'm just I enjoy being single. I kind of figure out who I am and enjoy time with my friends and don't have to really worry about anything. But I think there's times there'll be a couple months throughout a year and be hey, all of a sudden I really am craving this relationship and I really want to go out and find someone. And then but I think periods like that kind of creep up on me. I guess it's not really that often, but when it happens, it does suck. But I think I've definitely enjoyed finding my friendships and getting kind of closer to them during those times.
Right. And Mom, what are some of your experiences?
I didn't really have a whole lot of loneliness per se because I always had a bunch of kids. But different when you don't have another adult to share moments in life, whether good or bad. I struggled with that quite a bit, but I have to admit, my faith is what got me through a lot of that deeper loneliness. But I think all of us experience loneliness. But I do think, I appreciate hearing you girls say you keep a good friend base. I think that's a really important, because so many girls get involved in a relationship and they cut their friends off. And then when that breaks up, they don't have that friend base again. And I think it's really important that you, and it goes for men too, keep those close relationships that you've already built outside of a relationship so that they're there to support you afterwards.
Right. They're just making you stronger. There's somebody to lean on when you need somebody to lean on, somebody that supports you in those down times, but also encourages you in the high moments.
Exactly. And hopefully you have good friends that can be accountability to you and say, he really wasn't the guy you should have been with anyway. And listen to them. They know you better than you know yourself sometimes. And I think it's important to listen to your friends and say, I didn't think that was right anyway. Or warn you before you marry someone, which I didn't have that accountability when I married somebody. I shouldn't have.
I won't ask which one, because I think that at least Annalise and I know. But okay. With that being said, man, I think that we could go so much more into depth and into all of these stories. But like I said, we have so much to cover. And I wanted to share Romans 5:3-5. And the reason why is because I didn't recognize exactly what this verse was all about and the way it leads into this part. So I'll share it with you. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that sufferings produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. See, I didn't understand that last hope part. And I think that this is like the perfect time to lead into this. A part of loneliness is also like this want, this desire to have somebody with you. And I think that it's like, where do we find being content and the purpose in this time of singleness? Why is it so important that we are single and find ourselves in this? So with that being said, I actually called Mom before this episode to kind of set up the outline here, and she actually helped a lot. And that is, so now that we've talked about loneliness and kind of finding this area in our lives where we can improve upon and be okay with being single, now it's where do we find identity, not just in a relationship? Annalise, I'll bounce some things off of you. I'll bounce 3 off of you, and then we'll just kind of go around the circle again. So let's talk about boundaries, high expectations, and dealing with past experiences and relationships.
So for me, I think my past experiences really shaped not only who I am today, but also what I look for in my potential future relationships. I was young, so I didn't really know what I wanted. So after seeing who different people were and like being in a relationship with them, I started to mold this image or this idea of what I truly wanted. So I am personally really thankful for those early experiences in life that now at 21 years old, I know what I want and I'm not going to settle for anything less. I think that's a great thing. For me, I found a lot of identity through my relationships because all 3 of them were so different in high school. And I will say most of my high school experience was me being in a relationship. I think maybe in high school I went up to like 6 or 7 months not having a boyfriend, which is crazy now to think about considering it's been a while. But I think because of that, I truly, after the last one, sat myself down and said, you know what? Let's look at who we are as a person and let's really think about what I want in life. So, I think that my identity now came a lot from those experiences and, what I went through in each different relationship.
Do you think that also gave you some higher expectations?
Yeah. So, I was in a relationship at 15, 16 years old. I obviously don't want now what I wanted then. And now that I'm at a point in my life where I do want something long term, I do want, a future with someone someday, I definitely have much higher expectations and more boundaries set for not only myself, but what I want for a relationship.
Joanna, I know that you may not be able to touch too much on the dealing with past experiences and relationships unless you got something that you have on your mind that you can share there. What are some boundaries that you have set, Joanna?
So for me, just having like a lack of relationships, I've always kind of been like that person looking in. So I know kind of like what I want at this point too, just because like I've had so much time to reflect. And I think like I have a lot of boundaries, honestly. Like I know kind of like where I'm at. I know exactly what I want and I don't want. And I think just I really like those close friendships. And then from there, if I want something more, I communicate that to people because I'm like, I want to be straightforward. But I also want to tell you, like, I don't want to lead you on. Like, I don't want to be that person because if I know you're not someone that I'm looking for, I just don't want to like encourage that kind of behavior. But I do know like, even though I lack like actual long-term relationships, I kind of like still understand what I'm looking for and I like set those high expectations for myself. So then I'm not kind of running into the same problems that my friends have told me about. So I don't have to like deal with the same heartbreak. And it's kind of giving me an opportunity to find my identity in God a little bit more. And then just having that relationship gives me a better idea of what I want in my future. And I think sometimes it can be hard because I have like these arguments with my friends that they're like, hey, sometimes like you might have to give a little bit for your boundaries and your expectations and all this if you really want someone. Like I know I've had arguments with my friends and they're like, hey, like maybe you should like lower like your expectations with like your spirituality or something. And I'm just like, there's certain things like that I'm not willing to like give in on. I said
That
those
is,
to myself.
I want to stop you right there and just say that is stinking fantastic that you have those expectations, and you should feel encouraged with that. And the friends that are telling you, you know, you should lower those, don't listen to them, because that is only going to lead to you being heartbroken by
I feel like
a guy
that's
that
one
doesn't
thing
have
that,
those.
like, as a religious person, you cannot give in on. Because if your relationship is strong enough with God, why would you sacrifice that just to be in a relationship? So I think that's really awesome of you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I honestly like, it's the little things like that that I feel like are really important. And I know some people like see that, they're like, you should be willing to give in on little things like that because it's not that big of a deal. But I've been single long enough to know, like, that's what I prioritize in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone else doesn't, I don't really want to lower it and then kind of like feed into something that's not going to be, it's not going to work for me in the end anyways. So I might as well not just like be pursuing that.
Yeah.
And I think too, I mean, there are those dumb little things that people seem to put on their list of their boundaries, like if he puts the toilet paper on the wrong way. I mean, you got to define what those boundaries are, and those boundaries are the core principles and morals that you need to make a stand to. And I talked to Levi about this earlier. I struggled with knowing how to say no because I wanted to be nice. And I also grew up in a very religious, legalistic religion, in the sense that to be a Christian means you are a floor mat, basically. And so that
as
was
a woman. As a woman.
Okay.
Okay.
So I struggled with that coming into my, when I first got married at barely 17, 2 weeks. I was 17 by 2 weeks. Wasn't pregnant, by the way. But I struggled with that because I had no clue. And part of that came from, he talked about, the baggage you bring in. Well, I had never dated, but I brought in the baggage of my parents being divorced. I took in the baggage of never feeling secure in my home life, never feeling totally accepted and loved. So I took those feelings into, oh my gosh, I got to get a man that'll love me and cherish me, and we're going to grow old together and stuff like that. So I had no clue going in. So, and I still really struggle with that sometimes, even at 65 and
so it's not like that battle really ends.
No, I think that I got better. I was able to identify things better. I'm really big about reading, and I went on a journey one time, girls.
Boundaries and dating.
And this book, I read the regular, just plain boundaries. Now they have boundaries in dating, boundaries in marriage, boundaries in child rearing. But the boundaries book, the concept of knowing when to say no and when it's okay and being okay with saying no, really was freeing for me. Also boundaries and saying what's appropriate, not appropriate. Some girls are okay with some things and other girls aren't, but it's up to you what is comfortable for you. And I think that we struggled. I know in my generation, and I think this is a lot of difference in the sense that I'm coming in from a generation that the expectation of getting married young and having children was the thing.
Yeah.
So you did that.
It was something like 70% of young people were married by 25 in 1970, and today it's something like 40%.
Right.
And now I think like as us as 21, 20 years old, that's like insane to even think about.
Right. But back in my day, it was normal.
Yeah.
But I think too, when you look at the divorce rate,
you're looking at 50%.
Yes, and 50% across the board. We're not talking about secular world. We're talking even in the church today, 50% are divorced. And I think a lot of it is that we go in with this idea that mom and dad got married when they were 20, so I'm going to get married when I'm 20. And in today's culture, and this is not an insult to you guys, but in today's culture, I believe that young people look so much into the outside.
The physicality.
Yes, and don't look at the core issue of making that decision. So.
Yeah. The physicality, the possessions, the job, the success, the list goes on in what I think often people in my age group look for. I do think that, there needs to be some physical attraction. But I definitely wouldn't say, she has to be worthy of being on ESPN, like top model, like, I think that you need to have some realistic expectations that, yeah, you may get a guy with a dad bod. You may get a girl that doesn't have the flattest stomach, doesn't have the absolute perfect figure, but it doesn't mean that she is not a perfect person, a perfect personality that matches with your personality. And I think I agree with you, Mom, that we do put a lot of emphasis on physicality.
Well, and also another thing, and again, I'm not wanting to insult the younger generation, but you have the last 2 generations probably of children coming into adulthood with never being taught responsibility. And these kids are entering marriage, you young adults are entering marriage, never having had the responsibilities of chores, paying bills, just things they're going to have to come into a marriage and be ready for. And you're not ready. You're not prepared because your parents didn't prepare you. They babied you. They took care of you. They enabled you, did whatever they did. And so now you have 2 young people coming in and going, well, I'm not going to do that. I've never done that before. I shouldn't have to do that.
And I think you can also correlate the 50% divorce rate with the reason why. I mean, it just goes down the generations. It just continues to get worse. It doesn't really get better until what we're talking about, putting our heart in the right place, establishing these boundaries, and finding identity and purpose in everything that we do when we're establishing that relationship. Because I know, being raised in that home where I didn't have a father, mom and dad weren't married, that I didn't see a good representation of how marriage works. So in my young adult life, through my relationships, I was struggling to find, how do I solve this issue? How do I find a solution to this disagreements with this person? How much do I sacrifice? So often I think that, I looked at myself like, no, it's about me. It's about what I want. It's about what I desire. And it wasn't about what we both desire. How can we find compromise to come together on these differences to make a difference in our lives and the difference in the future generations that we may have in getting married?
And that's what's hard for young people today. They don't have the examples. When you're talking 50%, I think it probably could even be higher, 15% of divorced families, that these young people don't know how to do conflict resolution.
Right. Okay, so now let's move on to self-worth. Where do you kind of find some self-worth, and what advice can you give on that? Annalise.
So for me personally, I think for a long time in my younger years, I act like I'm so old, but when I was younger, I think I personally found a lot of self-worth in how people think of me and how people view me. Do I have a lot of friends? Am I wearing the right clothes? Do I look okay today? I think I found a lot of my self-worth there. I don't think it was probably until a year or 2 ago that I really started looking at my self-worth as, are we looking like how God wants us to look like? Because I started exploring my religion a lot more in college, and I realized all the materialistic stuff, it doesn't matter. If I'm portraying a life that God wants me to, that's all I need to be worthy of myself and what God wants. So I think that's where my self-worth comes from. And it's hard to accept at first. It definitely is, because I still want to be liked by everyone, and I want to have all the cute and all the materialistic stuff, but it doesn't matter. I think if I'm happy with myself and my life, if I'm content in my faith and relationship with God, that's all I really need to be worthy of this life.
Right. And Joanna, where do you find some self-worth?
Honestly, I think I'm exactly where Annalise has been. I don't think it really takes a relationship for someone to realize, or specifically girls, to find their self-worth in like how other people view them. Even if it's not like a like a dating or like a relationship with a guy rather than like even relationship with your friends. You still want all like people to view you as like I don't know, just like someone they want to be with kind of thing. And I think it's just hard to find your self-worth when you're younger in something other than that. But just growing up in the church, I think I have experienced a lot more of my self-worth and growing in my faith and kind of just prioritizing like my family and myself and like learning how to love myself over the years. And I think that's just honestly grown as I have realized like it's okay to be single. And this is a time where you kind of just like find that time for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Mom, could you talk about self-worth a little bit?
Yeah.
Dang it, I hate myself. Ah.
Well, I struggle with self-worth up until probably 40. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but you know, I was in survival mode most of the time. Very angry person. Thankfully, Levi didn't see that as much as my older kids did.
No.
But I had a lot.
You were 36 when you had me.
Yeah, so you know, I was pretty much worked that through.
Yeah.
You know, by then, and but my self-worth was pretty much didn't have any, and I didn't really understand what it was to have an identity in Christ, even though I had become a Christian as a teen. But nobody talked about those kind of things in the church, and how to find that. So I struggled that, and it's even like even after I was at 40, it was around 40-ish, 40, 42, I think. I was just sick of me. I didn't like me, and I fear if I didn't like me, well, nobody else didn't either.
Stop.
Well, I mean, you know, truly, if you don't like yourself, what are you bringing into your life?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't
And
like
what are you bringing into someone else's life?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I just had to have a come to Jesus meeting is what I call it, and say, you know, Lord, you got to show me why I'm the way I am.
Right.
And to me, that's where you begin with self-worth, is that you figure out who you are. Of course, I believe in who you are. Your identity is in Christ. God created you. So your identity is in Christ. So I don't care if you want to call yourself something else and say that's your identity. That's false, and it's a lie of our society,
Right.
and a lie of Satan.
Oftentimes when we define ourselves, we define what we do, whether that's
Right.
work
Right.
or our activities or whatever.
Right.
And
You're
I
correct.
think that's the wrong place where we're finding identity. Identity is so much deeper than the surface level, the image that we
Right.
put off to society.
That's right. Correct. Once, you know, and I went down a journey of 6 months. It took me 6 months to kind of figure out who I was. And thankfully, God just prompted my spirit to read. And I did more reading in that 6 months period than probably all my 65 years of life. But and that's the reason why I'm showing you books that did this. This book here, it's called Signature of Jesus by Brennan Manning. One of my things was that I knew that God had forgiven me for my sins and had accepted me for who I am. But my problem was I didn't accept his love. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but this book, The Signature of Jesus, really opened up to my eyes and what my worth was in Christ. And that was the pivotal point for me, is when I realized that I have worth in Christ. And that grew me. And from there, I just kind of like now, I mean, I hate to say this, I was a very yes person, didn't know how to say no for most of my first
That's so hard to
40
believe.
years. No, seriously.
I didn't experience that. So yeah, it's hard for me to believe that.
Kids.
Yeah.
Did not know how to say no. Anyway, now it's like I am who I am, and you're just going to get who I am. I mean, I don't pull any kind of pretense. I am also kind of known at my employment that if you want truth, you come see me, because I'll tell you the truth.
And that reminds me of one of my favorite Bible verses, Jeremiah 29:11. And, you know, I just shared Romans chapter 5, 3-5. But it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." So
right.
it comes back to that hope that
Yes.
that Romans chapter 5 was talking about.
Yes. And I needed that hope, because at that point I had lost that hope.
That relates to a lot about what Grandma said. It's hard to accept the Lord's love. You love Him, but it's hard to accept it back if you don't have that faith and hope.
Right. And that's giving you purpose. I went through
a patch with that too. Yeah. I went through a patch with that too, and it's like, I love the Lord, but I feel like my life is in such shambles right now. Like, how could the Lord love me? So you just don't accept it.
You know, and this is what I say. The thief on the cross did not have an opportunity to go to church, get baptized, take communion, join a Bible study,
live a life of acts.
Right. Did not have that opportunity. But he cried out to Jesus on the cross, and that day he got to walk into heaven with Jesus. Mm-hmm. Jesus doesn't base his love on anything that we do.
Right.
It's our heart condition and how we feel about him.
Mm-hmm.
And if we've accepted him.
So once you find that identity, then
right.
Boom. I'll share mine. So over the last year, anybody that's been real close to me knows that last year was probably one of the hardest years of my adult life. And a lot of it was dealing with these same things that we are talking about right now. You know, where's my identity? You know, do I define myself in that relationship, or do I define myself outside of that relationship? And I think a lot of what it was trying to find who I was in that relationship, as opposed to in singleness, finding who I was. Because now, especially since starting this podcast, wow, I've had to learn how to communicate better, how to give good points, how to listen better to what other people are saying, how to open up my mind and be able to hear the other side so that I can provide perspective that's fruitful, that helps other people. And doing that,
being authentic. You're being authentic of who you are. And I think that when you learn to be authentic in who you are, people listen.
Right.
You know, they're not going to listen to you or acknowledge you if they see falsehood in you.
Right.
You know, and so, yeah, I think it's very important that you learn about who you are.
Right. And through doing this and hearing everybody else's perspectives, because there's been times where I've said certain things that people didn't agree with, and I was able to reach out and have that conversation. And just establishing this whole platform, and now, you know, having you three on here to talk about this, providing some perspective to the majority of what the base of the Veritas 21 podcast is. I mean, right now it's somewhere near 96% is females that follow the Veritas 21 podcast. And it just continues to grow. So with all of that being said, oftentimes, you know, in those moments of singleness that we have all talked about, how important it is to have those friends that are mentors to you. And maybe even in that time of loneliness or depression that somebody experiences, seeking out a counselor or that mentor to discuss those issues that you have in your life. And I would pose this. Ask yourself these two questions. What is my purpose? What are my passions? Or what do I really care about when deciding who you want to be with? Because you have to know what you want, that self-worth, right? You have to know who you are, your self-worth, and respect yourself. And then you also have to know what you really care about. What are your passions? Because somebody that comes into your life should be assisting you in those purpose-driven lifestyle that you have. They should be assisting you. So learning enough about yourself can lead to your purpose. And so talking about all this stuff really digs into honing on your skills, because this is something where you get to grow. You're single now. So Annalise, what are some skills that you get to grow on in the moments of singleness?
So I feel like for me, some things that I didn't really do in my past relationships that I feel like I'm definitely getting better at now. So like, I'm very much improving these skills is definitely communication. I feel like since I've been single, I know what I want. So I'm much more open to having that open communication. Like, I don't like that you're doing this. So I'm really not interested, or this is a really great thing you do and I want to learn more about it. Stuff like that. I feel like I've definitely gotten a lot better about since I've been single. I feel like I also have taken more time to myself to pursue my passions or to pursue my interests without the pleasure of someone else. So it's like, oh, I want to do this. I don't have to worry about what other people think.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So I think between volunteering and pursuing my own dreams and aspirations and just getting involved with my mental and physical health has really benefited me, and it also helps not having to worry about someone else like, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at, this is who I'm with, and they're like, oh, you can't do that, or oh, you're not capable of that. I feel like that kind of thing has made me who I am and also teaches me what I want in a future relationship.
So, Joanna, how do you hone in on your skills and hobbies, per se?
Okay. So, yeah, I think honestly, just spending a lot of time alone or just like with my family and friends, kind of being able to have that opportunity to explore exactly what I want to do with my life and like what I like to do, just like how to spend my time. I've just learned that I really like to be around people, but at the same time, I like to do things that like I get to open my mind up a little bit more or just kind of have that time to myself. I like being out with nature and kind of just like reflecting. And I like going out with my friends and just like having fun and having like little like small adventures and like being able to hold on to these memories for a lifetime, like good experiences, I think. And that's why I think I love to travel and I just like to be outdoors kind of thing. I think it's been really hard just growing up and trying to find that in myself because when everybody else has been in relationships, they're using that time to figure out what they like in another person. And I think I've used that time to figure out what I like in myself and how I can grow in my confidence and how I can grow in being courageous and bold and communicating better, kind of like what Annalise said. So I definitely think it's just been a really good time to kind of just figure out where I'm at.
Right. And Mom?
It's good. Gosh, I didn't know I had a purpose for so many years other than being a mom. I think too, listening to you guys talk, I thought in my mind, like you said, you like to be adventurous and go outside, Joanna, and do things. And I think how many dates have you had with somebody who didn't like what you did, and so you put your own enjoyment aside to please the other person? I'm a people person. I am also a hermit. If you shut me in the house, and I can be content to be home indefinitely, but I do love people, and I have found that that's one of the things that I enjoy. I enjoy talking to people. I love hearing their stories, and I have found that I seem to always pick men who don't like people.
Oh, you did, huh?
Because I think that I've always had this innate thing that I am all powerful to fix them and make them better. And I've learned that I don't have that kind of control and that kind of power. And so I'm okay with that now, and I don't really have to work so hard at making that other person want to be on the same page
Right.
as me.
So often, like, we have this, here is a person that is actually willing to accept me. But I think that I can take them like a ball of clay and mold them into the things that I want them to be instead of allowing them to be themselves. And also you being able to be yourself and those things coming together. Right. We often think like we can mold them into what we want them to be.
And a lot of relationships do that. A lot of men as well as women.
Yeah,
think,
absolutely.
Okay,
I've been there.
I like this part of that person, and I think I can control the other part that's not the way I want it. And I said, but if you know that you're an adventurous person and you like to travel, you better hope you marry somebody that has the same feelings, or you're going to
you don't want to marry someone that holds you back.
Right. And it's okay. And it's okay to wait until that person comes. You know,
I think also being young though, it can be kind of hard because you're still in that phase where you want people to want you. So you're at that point, they're like, if they want to mold me, that's fine. Maybe I can give in a little bit here and there because you want someone to want you back. so you're willing to break into their mold. And I think that's also how you experience so much heartbreak going into finding yourself, because you're like, if that's the way they want me, let me mold myself into the way they want.
But I'm not saying don't try it. I mean, you might meet somebody who says, I love to gourmet cook, and you've never even gone in the kitchen. It's okay to go try that, but then be honest with yourself if you found enjoyment in it.
Yeah.
And so
I feel like go try it and admit when you find enjoyment in it, but also don't lose your own interests and your own hobbies.
Right.
Don't just throw away or throw aside all of the things that you love to do in order to fit someone's mold. I feel like there's a happy medium there.
Right. And I know Levi may touch on this, but there is such a thing called the 5 Love Languages by, who wrote that?
It was Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman, I'm sorry. And there's something to be said about knowing your love language. And then you can feed off of that when you know somebody else's.
Right. And the 5 love languages, for anybody that doesn't know them, they are words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, gifts, and quality time.
And define those. What ones are most important to you? I can guarantee you that 50% of all men is physical touch and words of affirmation. That just is a given.
Absolutely.
I'm 65, been around the block a few times, Levi. That's me. And so it says in the book, it makes the comment that a lot of times we try to treat people what our love language is and not listen to what their love language is. And so, getting to know somebody deep enough to know what their love language is gives you a better opportunity also to know that person and if you're going to be compatible in that.
As you guys can see, we had to take a little break there so Annalise could take off her hoodie, and they turned on a fan so you can see that calendar above the left side of her head moving. But that is okay. That is this is going awesome, and I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast so far. I do want to touch on, as you can see across the bottom of the screen, there are multiple social medias for you guys to go follow us. Go check us out on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and this platform just continues to grow, and I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you. So back to the topic. Annalise, can you give some of your strengths or views on your strengths and your weaknesses?
So yeah, for me personally, I feel like I have some good strengths. I have some bad strengths. Same with weaknesses. And I feel like that kind of also plays a big role in my dating life. So for example, one of my weaknesses is like physical touch and like being around the other person a lot. So when I find someone that wants to hang out all the time or wants to talk all the time, I kind of get turned off by it because I've been single for so long and I've really found content with being within myself, that when I find someone like that, I'm just not a fan.
Are you talking somebody that's clingy?
Very clingy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't want someone that feels the need to be stuck by your side 24/7.
And that is because you are constantly a busy person. You are working out, you are going to your next ruck, you have homework, you have something to always do.
And like I can see both sides of it, because I feel like with COVID, people were alone a lot. With quarantine and everything that's been on the past 2 years, people are so used to being alone that they feel the need to be with someone 24/7. But like you said, I'm so busy and I have so much going on that when someone's like that towards me, I'm not a fan. And
Exactly.
I feel like that is kind of a weakness, but kind of a strength. But things like that I don't agree with people on can be detrimental to a relationship.
And I think, and I'm not going to say that it's this way all the time, but I think that oftentimes that can show their dependence on you.
I agree with that.
The codependence.
And like I said in one of the previous episodes, I do not think you should put your 100% into somebody. You need to keep part of yourself tucked away in a small little pocket. In case it goes bad, you still have part of yourself. So
until you find the right person.
Exactly. But you can't automatically put your 100% into somebody because you never know how it's going to turn out. And if it does turn out bad, you've lost all of yourself.
Exactly, because
So
you're
I feel
talking
like-
about putting that identity into them.
Yes. So I
Right.
feel like that's a strength and a weakness. But also, for example, I feel like I'm a good communicator. If I don't like something you're doing, I'm going to tell you. A lot of people don't like that.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just how I am.
Well,
So I
we
feel like
live in a culture where we like to sugarcoat everything and make everybody feel
Exactly.
good.
Yeah. And I'm just can't say I fall into that
Like
category.
let's not put ourselves into a box and say that I have to fit A, B, C, and D.
Exactly.
I am my own person, my own identity, my own
Yeah.
purpose. Right.
And I feel like I do that a lot, which also has maybe sacrificed some relationships, but at the end of the day, that's fine with me because I want to be with someone that is okay with the open communication, and I'm going to be honest with you, you know? So I feel like I do have a lot of strengths, a lot of weaknesses. Everyone has a lot of weaknesses, but I do feel like that's helping me mold my idea of what I want in someone.
Mm-hmm. And Joanna, what are some of your views on your strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, so I think I've kind of learned that I'm okay with being alone, and I like that independence that I've kind of grown into. I know I love physical touch and quality time. I know I've had so much time. I'm just like, I know exactly what I want, but I think it leads into this weakness that it's hard for me to compromise that whenever I like meet someone who their love language is a little bit different, and it's for me it's like, okay, what am I doing wrong, because this is how I communicate that love and they don't, so it's hard. And if it's something else for them that I'm not good at, it's like I don't really know how to like give and take for that, because it's like I'm weak at that spot, so like I don't really know how to like become better, I guess. But I do think, like Annalise had said, I am pretty good at communicating, so I do feel like I could just sit down with someone and be like, hey, this is how like I would enjoy us to like spend our time.
Express your love.
Yeah, this is how I express my love. Like, how do you want me to like express my love back to you? But
Right.
I think, yeah, also just being alone for a while, it kind of gets hard when you have another person, because you also have to think it's not even just about you anymore. It's how else can that person feel loved by you, and it might be different, but you kind of have to learn
to adapt
to
I
their.
think that is a battle that everybody has in
Everybody.
relationships.
Everybody has it. I do think, though, that if you aren't big on a lot of hands-on physical touching and stuff like that, really difficult when you're with somebody that craves that.
Yeah.
I think it's, really finding a balance there and knowing, is that person like dependent on that for his happiness? You got to find a balance in that.
I want to clarify something here. Physical touch is not only sex.
No.
Okay.
No, yeah. It's
No.
like the hugging, just like the feeling of something.
It's like, hey, she's making French toast in the morning. I'm going to go up and just wrap my hand around her waist and just say, good morning, baby, and give her a kiss on the cheek or the forehead. That's simple physical touch. It's not always sexual.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are some people, men and women, that have to be constantly reassured that you love me by holding my hands, sitting beside me all the time, always in constant physical touch in some form or another. And I think, finding those balances. I don't particularly care about being with somebody that has to constantly be reassured. I think you have to
be confident in yourself.
Yes, be okay with you, so I don't have to do it for you.
Because you carry that burden. You carry that burden of reassurance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even in love language, if somebody is too needy on whatever their love language is, it's not a happy balance. And so, so for me, it was learning what speaks to my person, and then trying to communicate that back, which I think is really important, like what you said, Annalise and Joanna. Your communication skills plays a whole lot into your relationship.
Yes.
If that other person cannot communicate in the same manner, you're going to have a problem. And so, hopefully you both will come to a place that you meet, and Levi too, come to a place that you meet someone that, wow, he spoke right back to what I spoke to him, and he heard it. And which brings us to, you said about a topic of listening. That is one of my strengths. I listen. I listen to words that aren't being spoken.
Right, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Listening isn't always physically, audibly hearing it. It's also being able to read their facial expressions,
Right.
the
Their body
nonverbal
language.
communications.
Identify what that person is feeling.
Right. And to be able to empathize there, if whatever it is. And that's been a strength of mine for a long time. The bad part of that strength is the weakness part, where you take those things on and think it's your responsibility to fix that, or to re-communicate it to where you want him to understand it like I understand it.
Right.
You know,
And
kind of thing.
let's say that in this relationship you're having these problems. This goes back to that mentorship or the counselor.
Accountability,
Yeah.
even accountability partner, you know, to help you learn to communicate better in that sense. And so I think listening is just as important, right up there with communication. Because if you're not listening to what's being communicated, you're not learning. So, yeah, that's just mine. I have a lot of other weaknesses, but we don't need to discuss those.
Yeah. And I think, you know, some of my weaknesses in the past have been sometimes I let my anger get the best of me. I am a very, very upbeat person with a lot of energy, and I want to feed that into just about anything that I do. And oftentimes that has got in the way of me looking at things realistically and recognizing, hey, it's not all about me. A lot of anger is derived by self.
Well, I
And-
also feel like, Levi, you struggle because you are so used to being such a happy and positive person that when you do get upset or angry about something, it really does hit you hard. And I feel like sometimes you don't know how to control or handle it because you are so used to being so positive.
Right. And I am used to being positive. I like to feed that positivity, but in the negative, I'm looking at it like, oh gosh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, you know? And it's not really that it's the worst thing that's ever happened.
Because Levi's either up or he's down.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of happy medium between that.
Yeah, I don't
You're
think
either
so
in a
either.
good mood and you're positive and stuff, or you're just the whole world's falling apart.
Yeah. And I'll often like shut people out. Like I don't talk. And Annalise, I did want to hit on, you know, what you were saying about the clinginess. You know, often people are like, hey, talk to me. Like me, yo, I'm in this studio all the stinking time. Like if it's not recording an episode on the podcast, it's making a TikTok video. And if it's not making a TikTok video, it's me reading a book so that I can provide content to all of the listeners. It just
Or the karaoke.
Yeah, or it's the karaoke, you know, get my release with my friends, come into the studio, let's put some headphones on and just sing our hearts out into the microphones. Like I am so in tune with who I am with or what I am doing that I'm intentional with it. And I think like also in a relationship, that brings the next point is like, how important is it to be intentional in your relationship? Like, hey, I want you to be engaged with me. I want that quality time. So
But
can
you
you
also-
please like
now-
set down your phone?
Time out here, though. But you have to be okay in the silence of your relationship, too.
Absolutely.
So I was
Yeah.
going to say the put down your phone. I feel like it just depends on the dynamic or what you're doing.
Right.
So, I mean, if we're out on a date, yeah, please put your phone away. Like, we're trying to spend quality time together. You know, I'm trying to, like, have real and deep conversation where, you know, we're spending time together.
Exactly.
But if we're apart and you're busy, sure, put your phone away. Have fun with your friends. Do what you're doing.
Right.
Don't feel the constant need to be checking up, like, did she text me? Did she text me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like be intentional with it to an extent.
The intentional should be that you are my primary person here.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I'm 65 years old, and I don't like it when I'm engaged with a person in a conversation, male or female, and you're constantly checking your phone. Is there
No,
somebody
I
more
agree.
important to me
Exactly.
than me to talk to?
Exactly.
Yeah, like,
And
we're here having a real conversation. Why are you on your phone? Like,
Right.
we're engaging
like
now.
could you imagine me right now in the middle of this podcast just sitting here like this?
No. Because I'd
it's
be like, bye, Levi, we're done.
exactly. It wouldn't even be engaging. Like the conversation is good because our focus is on the conversation, right? But I agree with you, Annalise. I think that you also have to be okay with, when you're in a serious relationship, there's times that silent moment where you can take that self time where you can check your phone, check your social medias. Like me, I'm running multiple social media accounts that I have to continually provide content to. And there has to be that healthy balance of when I set it down and when I pick it up and do it. But I also have to read when is the right time and the wrong time to do that.
Well, and I'm talking even in the basis of silence in your relationship to say if you haven't gotten a text in a half a day, it's not the end of the world. There's silence in relationships sometimes just because it needs to be there so you are secure and comfortable in that.
And I think we've experienced it with a lot of friends that like they come out and they're like, hey, like I want to spend time with you. So to me, I'm like, okay, they want to see me, they want to hang out with me. But if they come over and they're just on their phone, it's like, how intentional was that? You said you wanted to be with me, you said you wanted to talk to me, but you're here and you're checked out. You're doing something else. Clearly, it wasn't that important that you wanted to come hang out with me and really see how I'm doing, kind of thing. But at the same time, like I get that we do that with our friends. Like when we're comfortable with each other, we talk when there's something to talk about. You don't want to push for anything, and you want to maintain that like comfortable like feeling with each other. You don't have to feel like you have to create a conversation out of nothing. But I think it's just a balance of both. When is a good time to be like silent with each other, and when's a good time to kind of really try and engage with each other.
Right.
Yeah, like don't talk to me while I'm reading a book.
Leave me alone.
And that's something I've learned that I'm okay with telling my kids or whoever calls and says, I'm watching a movie. Can I call you back? Or I'm in the middle of something. Is okay. And if that person finds offense in that, then there's a problem. Tell me about it. But we have to be okay to be quiet.
Right. Yeah. Well, we do have a few more things that we could cover, but honestly, I feel like we have covered pretty much everything on this. And I appreciate you guys so much. This was a fantastic episode, and I hope that it provided some insight, some perspective that is positive for you as going into Valentine's Day, because that is when this episode will be released, and that is the reason why we chose Singleness, because oftentimes on Valentine's Day, when you're single, like us, besides mother, it can be very difficult and very hard, but that's the reason why I wanted to make this episode. It also closes up dating in the XYZ generation. We may revisit it for a season 2, but I am going to be working on a new series titled The Breathing American Dream. Annalise, is there anything you want to close up with, and Joanna and Mother?
So I'm going to say all three of us have had such different life experiences and we're in different generations, everything's so different for all of us. So first of all, don't take anything we say into like true, like this is my therapist thinking. We're not experts. We're just giving our opinions and our experiences. Second of all, find the content within yourself to be happy where you're at while you're single. Don't give all that dependent on someone else, because that can really end badly for you. It's hard at first to be single and lonely, but I promise if you find faith within God and find happiness within yourself, you're going to be set up for life.
Right.
And I just wanted to say thank y'all for having me here, because I thought honestly it's going to be really scary. It's scary to talk about like not having as much experience as everyone else. And I think being a young girl, it can be very hard because it's like you're left out of all of this stuff. But I think it's just important to realize like where you're at and kind of like what you're doing to kind of find yourself and be comfortable with all that. And I think it's good to surround yourself with people that you can communicate all this to, and realize it shouldn't be as scary as you think it is, because everybody's in a certain place in their life that is different, and you kind of just move at your own pace and you'll find out where you are. And kind of like going back to the verse that we talked about, honestly, God has it all planned out for you, and it's just a matter of you figuring it out for yourself and kind of just trusting and leaning, and that it's all going to work out in the end.
Right. Mother.
I just really appreciate hearing your younger view on things. That's really encouraging, actually.
It is. It's encouraging for me, honestly.
It's actually encouraging.
Levi, you ain't even that old.
Yeah.
Oh, come on now.
But
It's the lighting.
but you know, Valentine's Day is a day for Hallmark cards, people. I believe that Valentine's Day should be every day.
Right.
You know, to those that you love, male, female, couples or no couple.
Don't just show love one day a year.
Yeah,
Come on now.
No, you know, if you're going to send me flowers all the time. Don't just send me flowers on Valentine's Day.
Random.
You know, random.
As a guy, random.
That's right,
because you got to
random.
keep them on their toes.
That's right.
There you go.
You know, so, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. I like getting the younger people's point of view. I don't get to be around younger people very often.
Yeah, but I appreciate, I get to talk to you every day. So I get to hear your perspective all the time, but you being able to come on here and share that perspective that I often get, you guys as listeners get to see where a lot of my mindset comes from. It's from my mom because she's stinking
I'm not a
awesome.
licensed counselor, but I have life experience.
No, but she is a very wise woman.
Yes, exactly. Well, how
you.
could you not be wise after 7 kids? And, you learn a lot from that.
You do.
And your life experiences have reciprocated into all of us. I mean, even Annalise, like here we got a stellar young woman that is being very successful in everything that she is pursuing. And it's awesome to see her growth. And a lot of that comes from you. It's awesome to see how it's playing out in my life and how it has played out in the rest of us.
You're embarrassing me.
We're just very thankful to have you, Grandma. You're very wise.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I had to ask God for that because I wasn't before I was 40.
So again, guys, we got Annalise Young, Joanna Martinez, and Kim Mattern. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in to this whole series, Dating in the XYZ Generation. If you have not gone back through and listened to the prior episodes, we talk about baggage, we talk about disconnection in regards to relationship, we talk about college dating, I talk a little bit about chivalry from a man's perspective. That's just a solo episode. And then the last episode that I did was about timing. And then I did a bonus episode on timing for sex, especially as a Christian, which was an awkward conversation for me because how do you approach that? It's just weird. But anyways, I want you guys.
Having that.
Yeah, no.
Levi.
Not this guy, nope. So I do want to remind all of you guys, go follow us on all the social media accounts. I work my hardest to provide content daily, whether that is a quote or that is a short video that I put together. And you can find those short videos on the Veritas 21 podcast on TikTok. I also have a professional page that is L Brickley Official on TikTok. And then the Facebook page, there's also YouTube, all of these different platforms that you can go just check out what's going on with the platform as a whole. If you guys would, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That actually gets up the viewership and exposes it a little bit more. If you enjoyed this message, maybe it will provide perspective to somebody else and impact somebody else's life. Also, at the bottom of the description on the podcast, there are links to each one of these social media accounts. All you have to do is click it. It will open it up, click follow, and you will consistently get the daily content that the Veritas 21 podcast provides.
And I will take all interviews if they're interested in you.
Yeah, my mom is the one that reads over the application process to date me.
You have to fill out
but
a whole
it
resume.
it requires effort. It requires a cover letter and a resume. And this better be like top of the line resume, like easy to read, super informative, but concise.
And I'll be real with you.
Yes, you will.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you very much for tuning into the Veritas 21 podcast and listening to this awesome episode of Dating in the XYZ Generation with Annalise Young, Joanna Martinez, and Kim Mattern. You guys have a great rest of your week, and may grace be with you. See you guys.